about we the people. We the people. We the people. We the people. Oh, we the people. We the people. We the people. We the people.
You know, when you look out the window of an airplane from like 30,000 feet,
Oh, yeah.
the world just looks incredibly neat. I mean, you see these massive sweeping lines, right? The rivers carving through the landscape, the interstate highways connecting major hubs.
Play borders. Yeah.
Exactly. It all feels so grand and structural and honestly a little inevitable.
It looks like a finished map, you know? It's very comforting because you can kind of see the whole system at a glance. And from up there, I mean, the system looks like it works perfectly.
Right. But then you land.
Yeah.
You step out of the airport and onto the actual pavement of a city. Let's say you step onto the pavement of a place like Port Chester, New York, on a Friday like today, August 7, 2026.
Right.
Suddenly that neat map is just, well, it's entirely gone. You're looking at cracked sidewalks, confusing stoplights, local zoning laws, neighborhood block associations.
All the messiness.
Yeah. Those grand sweeping lines turn into very specific everyday realities.
Which is pretty much the absolute definition of on-the-ground reality.
Right.
It's the macro versus the micro, like the theoretical movement versus the practical friction of actually making things happen.
And for you listening, I mean, we are taking that exact journey today. We're dropping from the 30,000-foot view all the way down to the local sidewalk.
We really are.
So we are doing a deep dive into the summer 2026 edition of the Marshall Standard, which is the official newsletter of the NAACP Port Chester Rye Branch in New York.
And it's just a brilliant text to look at right now because, well, it captures this really fascinating contrast.
Right.
The United States is currently celebrating its 250th anniversary, kind of wrestling with those grand, overarching, unfinished promises of the Declaration of Independence.
Yeah, the big picture.
Exactly. But simultaneously, this specific local NAACP branch is celebrating its own milestone, its 85th anniversary.
Wow.
So we get to see exactly how a sweeping national civil rights movement actually translates into local, everyday action on the ground.
Right up front, though, we do need to set the context for the activism happening in this branch today.
Yeah, that's important.
Because in his opening letter, the branch president, James J. Henderson III, he states that their current momentum is driven by a need to fight back against what he describes in the newsletter as, and I'm quoting here, the vile, strategically diabolic actions of a corrupt administration.
Yeah.
Which he argues is, rolling back civil rights and erasing history.
And just to be completely clear to you, our listener, we are simply reporting the driving sentiment expressed in the source material here.
Exactly.
We aren't taking a political side or endorsing that statement. We're just impartially conveying the specific viewpoints and, well, the profound sense of urgency that is animating this branch's work right now.
Because that urgency is really the engine for everything they're doing. And you really see that engine revving at the 117th NAACP National Convention in Chicago.
Oh, definitely.
The theme of the convention was We the People. And they were focusing heavily on a massive $20 million investment for midterm voter mobilization across 14 states.
Which, I mean, that is a staggering number for a midterm election effort.
It's huge.
Mechanically, when an organization drops $20 million into mobilization, they aren't just buying television ads,
Right.
They are building an infrastructure. They're funding the logistics to reach millions of infrequent voters. So recruiting volunteers to physically knock on doors, send targeted texts, write postcards.
The ground game.
Exactly. It's a massive, highly calculated national strategy.
But getting to Chicago to actually discuss this strategy was apparently a total nightmare for the delegates.
Oh yeah, the weather.
Yeah. Severe weather completely derailed travel, flights were canceled, people were delayed for days, and the newsletter highlights this one specific anecdote about a guy named Kingsley from the Bronx.
I love this story.
Right. When the airlines failed him, Kingsley didn't just give up and log on to a Zoom call.
No.
He got behind the wheel of his car and drove over 12 hours straight through the storms to get to Chicago.
That 12-hour drive, I mean, it's a lot more than just a frustrating travel story. Because the newsletter notes that finding a way out of no way has basically been the ethos of the NAACP for 117 years.
Right.
Kingsley is sort of the physical embodiment of that. It's that sheer, stubborn determination to show up. Because if you don't physically show up, the $20 million strategy doesn't execute itself.
And showing up is exactly what President Henderson emphasizes when he's reflecting on the convention. He writes that national policies and litigation are incredibly important, but the work, like the actual progress, must, quote, eventually arrive on a block, at a library, inside a church, and within the local voting booth.
Yeah.
So, okay, let's unpack this. If you think about it, national policy is really just an architect's blueprint, you know?
Okay.
The national office draws up these beautiful, complex $20 million plans. But the local branches are the construction workers pouring the concrete. Without the local branch, the blueprint is just a piece of paper sitting on a desk in Washington, D.C.
I mean, I like the analogy, but honestly,
Yeah.
it's almost the reverse in a lot of ways.
Oh, really? How so?
Well, the local branches aren't just blindly taking orders from architects in D.C. They're often the ones forcing D.C. to draw up the blueprints in the first place, based on what they are seeing on the ground.
Oh, okay.
The national office relies on the local labor not just to execute the plan, but to tell them what the plan needs to be.
Oh, wow, that's a great point. The connection between the national leaders and the local reality is incredibly tight then.
Exactly.
Because, for example, while they were at the convention in Chicago, the Portchester Rye delegation visited the Hub, this massive exhibit hall,
Right.
and they ran into Kristen Clark, the NAACP General Counsel.
Right, a major national figure.
Yeah, she oversees the organization's entire legal strategy. But their conversation didn't stay national at all. It immediately turned hyper-local to Portchester.
What's fascinating here is Kristen Clark actually had direct ties to a 20-year-old voting rights case right there in Portchester.
Wait, really?
Yeah. The federal case challenged the village's at-large election system under the Voting Rights Act. And it ultimately led to the adoption of cumulative voting, which was designed as a remedy to provide Hispanic residents with a fairer opportunity to elect candidates of their choice.
Okay, wait, before we move on, what exactly is cumulative voting?
Sure.
And what is an at-large system? Like, how does changing the math of a local ballot actually fix racial discrimination?
It's a great question because the mechanics here are totally crucial.
Yeah, I'm a bit lost.
So, in an at-large election system, let's say a town has 5 open seats on the city council, right?
Okay.
And every voter gets to vote for 5 people. If 60% of the town is white and votes as a block, they can win every single one of those 5 seats.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, completely shutting out the 40% minority population.
The minority group gets zero representation, even though they make up almost half the town.
Because the majority just steamrolls all 5 seats.
That's wild.
Exactly. But cumulative voting changes the math. Under cumulative voting, you still have 5 seats and you still get 5 votes. But you can stack your votes. A voter can choose to give all 5 of their votes to a single candidate.
Oh.
So if that 40% minority population pools their votes together and stacks them on 1 or 2 candidates, they can guarantee themselves representation on the council. It literally breaks the monopoly.
That is brilliant. It's a mathematical fix to a systemic problem.
It really is.
And the fact that the top lawyer at the NAACP wants to talk about the mechanics of voting in this specific village from 2 decades ago just proves your point. The national blueprint comes from the local pavement.
Exactly.
And this branch has an astonishing habit of intersecting with massive historical figures, too.
Well,
I mean, the whole reason the Portchester Rye branch was founded 85 years ago is because a young lawyer named Thurgood Marshall came to Portchester to defend a man named Joseph Spell.
the famous case from 1941?
Yeah.
The one that actually inspired the movie Marshall. That specific legal defense galvanized the local residents to organize and officially charter the branch. I mean, a future Supreme Court justice is literally the foundational spark for this local community group.
Wait, it doesn't stop there, though. President Henderson shares this incredible personal connection to Chicago.
Oh, right, the family history.
Yeah. While he was there, he reflected on his late Aunt Winey. She was the secretary for Abe Saperstein and the Harlem Globetrotters,
Wow.
literally booking their travel and running the day-to-day operations of this legendary team. And her husband, that was Wendell Smith.
The pioneering black sports writer.
Yes, the man who was instrumental in helping Jackie Robinson break the color barrier in Major League Baseball.
Wendell Smith is an absolute legend. He was the first black member of the Baseball Writers Association of America.
Right.
He traveled with Robinson, wrote for the Pittsburgh Courier, and really helped Robinson navigate an incredibly hostile environment. He was making history on a massive national scale.
But then, here is the gut punch. Jackie Robinson, this national hero, this icon, who Wendell Smith helped shepherd into the majors. He later tried to buy a home in Port Chester,
Yeah?
and he was denied because of racial discrimination.
It's a really jarring reality check.
Huh.
And it's important to understand how that happens, you know?
Right, it wasn't just one person.
Exactly. It wasn't just a rude real estate agent saying no.
Well,
In the 1940s and 50s, discrimination in places like Westchester County was deeply structural.
Right.
You had racial covenants written directly into the deeds of houses, legally forbidding the sale of the property to anyone who wasn't white.
Wow.
And you had banks participating in redlining, flat out refusing to issue mortgages to black buyers in certain neighborhoods.
So you can break the color barrier in front of millions of people in a baseball stadium in Brooklyn and then literally be told by a bank or a neighborhood covenant that you aren't allowed to live on a quiet street in Westchester County.
The macro achievement doesn't automatically fix the micro reality. It's a stark reminder that historical progress isn't a straight line.
It really makes you pause. Like, are we walking past major historical milestones in our own hometowns every day without realizing it?
Probably.
Is the grand narrative of civil rights actually just a collection of hyperlocal histories scaled up? We think of history as something that happens out there in thick textbooks, but it's actually happening on the street corner we pass on our way to the grocery store.
And if you don't actively work to remember it, that history just disappears.
Yeah.
That realization is a major theme in how this branch approaches preservation. They aren't just fighting for future policies, they are actively working to unearth and protect the past.
Right.
Because if you don't know who walked your streets before you, you can't fully understand the community you're trying to build today.
Which brings a whole new weight to their Juneteenth celebration. They held it at the historic Bush Lion Homestead in Port Chester.
Yes.
And the newsletter makes a point to emphasize that this wasn't just a random park chosen for a picnic. This event took place on the exact land where enslaved African Americans once lived and labored.
It profoundly changes the atmosphere of a celebration.
I can't imagine.
When you realize you were standing on the very soil where ancestors were held in bondage, it turns a holiday into a deeply resonant act of reclamation.
And the newsletter includes this really powerful Did You Know section. It lists the names of the enslaved people associated with the property and the surrounding Rye community.
Right.
And we should speak some of those names right now. Rose and Jack in 1689, the children, Abel and Doll in 1739, Hector in 1746, Hannibal in 1768.
And what makes that list so sobering is the context the newsletter provides about those dates.
Yeah.
1689, 1739, 1746. Those are not birth dates or death dates.
Right.
Those are simply the years these individuals were recorded in surviving historical documents.
Wow.
Often they were listed in property records, wills, or inventories alongside livestock and furniture.
That is
In most cases, historians have absolutely no idea when they were born, what their lives were truly like, or when they died. The only proof they existed is a clerical entry by the people who enslaved them.
So, what does this all mean? I mean, imagine trying to read a book where half the pages have been completely torn out,
Yeah.
and the ink on the remaining pages is fading. You have to fiercely cherish the fragments. You do have to understand the full story of your community.
Absolutely.
You have to hold on to the name Hector and the year 1746, because that tiny, incomplete fragment is the only proof that his life happened on that land.
It is entirely about honoring the fragments. And they carry that same spirit of active preservation to the Rye African American Cemetery.
Right.
The branch joined neighbors and local officials to restore and care for this sacred ground where Black Civil War veterans are buried.
Oh, wow.
They hosted an event there called the Liberation Table.
Where people shared food, shared family stories, and literally spoke the names of their ancestors out loud into the air.
Speaking the names is a deeply significant cultural practice.
Yeah.
Yeah, when you have a history where people were marginalized in life and systematically undocumented in death, speaking their names ensures they aren't erased from the community's memory.
That makes a lot of sense.
It's not just looking backward. It is preservation as a very active, vibrant form of modern activism.
But if preserving the past requires that kind of active effort, sustaining the present requires active funding.
Oh, absolutely.
You can't preserve history or fight for future policies for free,
Right.
which leads to a really hard truth the president brings up about economics.
Yes. The newsletter details an incredibly candid moment that happened at the 40th African American Heritage Festival at Kensico Dam.
Right, which is a massive event in the county. Decades of history, thousands of people, world-class entertainment, food, culture.
Huge turnout.
Right. So the branch set up a booth there to debut their limited edition 85th anniversary t-shirts. And these weren't just standard logo shirts. The design specifically honored local Spingarn medalists who had strong ties to Westchester County.
Right.
Icons like the legendary actress Ruby Dee and the groundbreaking artist and photojournalist Gordon Parks.
And for you listening who might not be familiar, the Spingarn Medal is basically the highest honor the NAACP awards. It's given annually for outstanding achievement by an African American. We're talking previous winners like W.E.B. Du Bois, Rosa Parks, Martin Luther King Jr.
Wow, okay.
It's a monumental distinction. So to have local Westchester figures honored with this medal is a huge point of pride.
You would think at a massive heritage festival, shirts celebrating local heroes of that caliber would sell out in an hour.
You really would.
But President Henderson reveals a striking reality in the newsletter. They didn't sell a single shirt. Zero.
It's a shocking admission for a promotional newsletter, isn't it?
Yeah, really unexpected.
But he uses the failure to make a vital point. He writes about seeing massive lines for fish dinners, macaroni and cheese, and lemonade. And he's clear that those food vendors deserve every single customer.
Right, of course.
But then he asks a tough question. Imagine if we brought that very same enthusiasm to purchasing artwork from a local artist, a book from a Black author, or apparel that financially supports the preservation of art history.
Here's where it gets really interesting. He introduces this concept of intentional economics. He argues that supporting Black causes and businesses must be an intentional practice, not just verbal support. Every purchase is an investment in someone's dream or in an organization's survival.
Yeah.
And it really makes you stop and challenge yourself. Is our own daily activism sometimes too passive? Like, we might attend the vibrant festivals, listen to the music, and enjoy the food, but are we actually making the intentional economic choices that financially sustain the movement?
Are we buying the t-shirt to fund the cause, or are we just eating the fish fry?
Exactly.
It's a brilliant provocation.
Right.
Because if we connect this to the bigger picture, true civic engagement requires both celebrating the culture and financially sustaining the institutions that protect it.
Right.
Culture is beautiful, but it requires infrastructure to survive. Economic investment is what builds that infrastructure. It's what keeps the lights on at the local NAACP branch so they can continue fighting for those voting rights we talked about earlier.
And when a community does invest intentionally, the results are undeniable. The newsletter perfectly contrasts the disappointment of the t-shirt sales with their massive success investing in youth through a program called ACTSO.
Right.
That stands for the Afro-Academic, Cultural, Technological, and Scientific Olympics.
ACTSO is a phenomenal initiative. It's essentially an ecosystem of mentorship and exposure for high school students.
Okay.
It covers everything from STEM to the humanities to the performing arts. And the Port Chester Rye branch, through the Westchester Region ACTSO Coalition, is seeing incredible results because they actually funded the infrastructure.
They highlight local students who went to the national competition in Chicago and won. Michael Middleton took home a silver medal in ballet and a bronze in modern dance.
Amazing.
Yeah. And Olivia Wallace won a bronze medal for her work in biology. The newsletter says that at a time when Black achievement is too often overlooked or undervalued, ACTSO provides an environment where brilliance is, quote, expected, cultivated, and celebrated.
I love that phrasing. Expected, cultivated, and celebrated.
Yeah, it's powerful.
It is the exact antidote to passive activism. Brilliance doesn't just happen in a vacuum. It has to be funded, mentored, and given a stage.
Right.
When a community practices intentional economics, they can afford to build the kind of infrastructure that produces a Michael Middleton or an Olivia Wallace.
It's the blueprint and the concrete all over again.
Yes.
The blueprint says we believe in our youth. The concrete is someone like Mrs. Ingram Taylor, the local ACTSO director they praise in the newsletter, putting in the countless unglamorous hours to actually mentor the students, raise the funds, and get them all the way to Chicago to win those medals.
It all comes back to the local labor, whether it is mentoring teenagers, navigating the complex math of cumulative voting, restoring a cemetery, or driving 12 hours through a thunderstorm to cast a vote on a national strategy.
Which brings us to the core takeaway from this edition of the Marshall Standard. In his reflection on the past several months, President Henderson writes a line that I think really anchors this entire deep dive.
What's that?
He says, progress rarely arrives all at once. More often, it is built meeting by meeting, conversation by conversation, partnership by partnership, and person by person.
It is the ultimate rejection of the airplane view of history we started with.
Exactly.
History isn't just sweeping movements led by a few famous figures floating above us. It is the cumulative effect of ordinary people refusing to believe that someone else will solve the problems facing their community.
So whether you are prepping for a political science class, trying to understand how grassroots movements function, or you are just insanely curious about how democracy actually works, the lesson here is that our grand national ideals are actively maintained at the neighborhood level.
Yeah.
The macro relies entirely on the micro.
And realizing that requires a shift in how we view our own daily routines. We have to start seeing our local sidewalks as the actual staging ground for history.
Which leaves us with a final thought to mull over. If history is truly built block by block, as this branch has shown for 85 years, what invisible history is happening in your own neighborhood right now that won't be written down for decades? When you step out onto your own local pavement today, how will the everyday, mundane actions you take in your community be recorded by the future? Will you just be enjoying the view, or are you ready to pour the concrete?